Welcome back. I'm Rick Sanchez. Out in the open tonight. This is a story that's going to make you think. Some big trouble for 7 top military officers who took part in a promotional video for a Christian group. The Defense Department's Inspector General says that the officers violated ethical rules because they wore their uniforms when they appeared on that video you're looking at right there. Now, this is just the latest development in a story that we've been following, the role of religion in the military. Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr files this report.
7 military officers, including 4 generals, engaged in misconduct when they appeared in this 12-minute video endorsing a Christian evangelical group. The incident happened 3 years ago, and the misconduct finding has just been issued by the Pentagon's own Inspector General after an investigation of how the promotional film was put together by a group called Christian Embassy.
Christian Embassy really gives us a tremendous opportunity here in the Pentagon as leaders that carry a lot of responsibility on our shoulders on a daily basis to stop and reflect.
I see a brother in the Lord from these flag fellowship groups, and I immediately feel like I'm being held accountable because we're the aroma of Jesus Christ.
Some parts of the Christian Embassy video feature officers in uniform and were shot within the Pentagon, apparently to promote the group. The Inspector General said that's an ethical violation.
There is religion here at the Pentagon. This is the multi-faith chapel. Here, all religions are represented. In fact, in just a few minutes, military members of the Islamic community will be here to offer their private daily prayers. But no one of any faith, while on active duty in uniform, goes out and actively seeks converts.
There have been religious missteps by the military before. In 2003, Army Lieutenant General William Boykin was criticized for appearing before church groups, saying President Bush was appointed by God. In 2005, at the Air Force Academy, some cadets and faculty were found to have inappropriately engaged in promoting certain religions. Mikey Weinstein is the founder of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, which asked for the IG investigation.
They were absolutely proselytizing. That was all that they were doing. I told you our researchers have now found that that numbers of them had actually led Christian Embassy Bible studies. They were well aware what this was about.
The Inspector General's report has unsettled some chaplains who don't seem convinced that there was any wrongdoing.
As a Christian, I should be able to say that my religion helps me to be a better Army chaplain or Army officer. I should be able to say that without worrying about whether or not I've crossed some type of a line.
Now, several of the generals have apologized. Some say they didn't know they were appearing in a promotional video, but the military is looking at corrective action against all of those who appeared. Rick?
Fascinating story. Barbara Starr, thanks so much for bringing us up to date on that. Let's talk to somebody now who you saw in Barbara's report, Mikey Weinstein. We saw him just a moment ago, and he's a former Air Force officer, served in the Reagan administration. He's the founder and the president of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. So given your title, I can imagine what your beef is, but go ahead and explain it to our viewers.
Well, it's very simple, Rick. What we've got here is a situation that is a national security threat every bit as significant in magnitude, width, and breadth internally as that presented externally by the now resurgent Taliban and an al-Qaeda that our national intelligence estimate has recently stated is at least as strong as it was on 9/11.
Ho. You're comparing American soldiers to the Taliban?
I'm telling you that's what happened, the blending, the total blending of this radical Christian right-wing organization, the Christian Embassy, and its tentacles are all throughout the Pentagon. This is all over the Department of Defense. In fact, if you look at the report, the Department of Defense report, Major General Pete Sutton stated that his own Turkish car driver, when he was in Turkey, presented him the newspaper Sabah, where it showed a picture of himself with a Christian embassy, where he was identified as being a member of a radicalized Christian fundamentalist organization, and the general had to explain himself to the Turkish general staff. Part of his job for the Pentagon was to create good relations between ourselves and Turkey. When the separation of church and state...
But Mr. Weinstein, the military has come out and said they're going to discipline these guys. They're essentially saying...
No, they didn't say that, Rick. Rick, you're wrong. Rick, you're wrong. What they said was they advised the services to, quote, take corrective action. I expect they'll probably be having these folks eat a couple of...
What does corrective answers mean? When your boss says, we're calling you in and we're going to have to take corrective answers as a result of your behavior, they're disciplining you, aren't they?
No, I tell you, there's a full range. This is something that ought to be handled with a court-martial. If you look at lower people on the chain of command, when they wear their uniforms, those who've been to Iraq 3 and 4 times, and they're participating in anti-war demonstrations, these are people that are being faced with court-martial. This is a serious breach. It's mixing fundamentalist Christianity with the most technologically lethal organization we've ever had.
And you're right. And most people would agree with you. They shouldn't do this while wearing their uniforms, that we do live in a country where we're supposed to separate the two, just like they shouldn't go to a Barack Obama campaign and campaign for him, or a George Bush or anybody else. You're not supposed to mix those two. It's really a question of severity, though. You want them all fired for doing this, and you think it's a problem that's rampant throughout the entire military?
We have 737 U.S. military installations, Rick, scattered in 132 countries around the world. We have the Officers Christian Fellowship and Christian Military Fellowship have a tripartite goal. The first goal is they want to see a spiritually transformed U.S. military. Secondly, with ambassadors for Christ in uniform.
Who's doing this?
Empowered by the Holy Spirit.
Who do you say is doing this?
This is the Officers Christian Fellowship and the Christian Military Fellowship. It's ubiquitous. It's in the very air conditioning of our honorable and noble U.S. military, Rick. It's not a small matter. That's why our foundation is here.
We don't believe it's a small matter either.
We've had over 5,000 members of the U.S. military.
And that's why we have you on as a guest. We appreciate you, sir, for sharing your point of view on this.
Thank you very much.
And obviously there are those in the Pentagon who would probably disagree, at least with the severity issue. We'll have you back.